The haze was still curling into the air when Calder Rowan spotted the ruins. Long streaks of dark smoke coiled upward from what had once been the Hale Creek farmstead, thick enough to dull the pale light of early fall. Calder had been following the high trail along the ridge when it caught his eye, nearly 3 miles away, resting low in the basin like a wound that refused to close. Smoke out here didn't always mean trouble. Sometimes it was a controlled burn, sometimes a stovepipe gone wrong. Out here, people learned quickly not to poke their noses into every strange sign on the land. And Calder Rowan had spent the better part of 5 years doing exactly that, keeping his distance, minding only his own path. But this smoke felt wrong. It didn't drift lazily. It climbed with purpose, rolling and folding like something furious. Calder clicked his tongue and urged his horse forward, guiding her down the narrow descent toward the valley floor. The smell reached him before the ground leveled out. It wasn't pine, it wasn't dry grass or damp timber. It was dense, sour, and unmistakable. Burned cloth, treated leather, and beneath it all, a darker scent Calder wished he'd forgotten, but never truly had. War left marks like that, invisible ones that stayed with you. His shoulders stiffened. Without thinking, his hand slid back to the long gun strapped across his coat, fingers brushing the cold certainty of iron and ammunition. This wasn't an accident. He knew that the same way a sailor knows a coming storm. The Hale Creek place stood, or what remained of it, like a shattered jaw against the rolling amber hills. The storage shed had collapsed inward, its beams sticking out at odd angles like broken bones. The main house was little more than scorched stone, and a single brick flue rising stubbornly from the wreckage, refusing to fall even after everything else had surrendered. Nothing had been spared. Even the small animal pens had been burned clean through. No rush, no panic. Whoever had done this took their time. Calder swung down from the saddle carefully. His boots crunched over ash and warped metal as he led his horse closer. The mare snorted uneasily, ears pinned back, uneasy with the lingering odor. Calder looped the reins around a fence rail that had somehow avoided the fire, then stepped forward alone. Silence pressed in. He crossed what had once been a yard. No laughter, no wind chimes, just cinders and footprints half erased by drifting ash. He found the first body near the water pump. Jonah Hale lay sprawled on the dirt, face turned away, one arm bent at an unnatural angle. The back of his skull had been crushed with something heavy and blunt. Calder crouched beside him, 2 fingers pressed briefly to the side of the man's neck. More habit than hope. Nothing. Calder closed his eyes for a moment. Jonah hadn't been a close friend, but they'd shared coffee once during a cattle drive winter back. He remembered the man laughing easily, proud of the land he'd carved from stubborn soil. Calder rose slowly and continued on. Near the remains of the house, he found Mara Hale, collapsed beside the doorway that no longer existed. She hadn't made it far. Her hands were burned, as if she'd tried to push through fire that gave no mercy. Calder swallowed hard and turned away before the memories pushed too close. He circled the wreckage carefully, scanning the ground. Boot prints, at least 3 different sets. Heavy soles, not locals. These men didn't walk like farmers or traders. They moved like people who expected resistance. Behind what had once been the kitchen wall, Calder found the worst of it. The children. 2 small shapes hidden beneath a fallen beam, as if someone had tried, too late, to shield them. Calder knelt there longer than he should have. His jaw tightened until it ached. This wasn't robbery. This was a message. He stood, breath slow and measured, forcing the past to stay where it belonged. Anger was useful, but only if it didn't blind you. He studied the ground again, noting drag marks, the direction the attackers had left, toward the eastern flats, toward the old river road. Calder returned to his horse and untied the reins. He didn't mount right away. Instead, he rested his forehead briefly against the saddle horn and let the weight of what he'd seen settle. He'd told himself he was done with all this. Done with blood and burned homes and graves dug too shallow. Done with choosing sides. But the land didn't care what promises a man made to himself. Calder swung into the saddle and turned the horse east. The smoke behind him thinned, finally losing its grip on the sky. But ahead the trail stretched long and empty, and Calder knew, deep in his bones, that this was only the beginning. Some